Vincent James. One of these pretty neocon Christian conservative types. If you can't tell by the red hat, also, I believe, a Trump supporter. Definitely not a supporter of Black Lives Matter or of anyone any darker than he is. Um, Came out with this video just today. No trespassing. Couple shamed for legally defending their home. And I want to say this is Philadelphia, but I can't remember where this took place. It was a peaceful march going by for Black Lives Matter. So this couple, both of which I believe are lawyers. One serves on, I believe, the ethics board for the local bar or something to that effect. I know that they're both legal professionals. Thought it'd be okay to stand out here and point guns at the protesters. So, St. Louis? Okay, thank you, Dodge. St. Louis, yes. So, Vincent, take it away.
Now, I suppose I should probably start this off by showing you a screenshot from the Washington Post, because I really want you to keep in mind how the mainstream media is covering this story, and not only just the mainstream media, but specifically the Washington Post. As we travel through the facts of the story, as we travel through the multiple legal opinions from legal professionals who, by the way, are unanimous on this story, I want you to keep in mind how the mainstream media is.
So, yeah, I want to make it. I don't think they necessarily did anything illegal. Especially if St. Louis is a stand your ground city. I don't know which I don't know what the laws of Missouri are, but it's still pretty shitty to do, to stand out and point guns at, even ignoring that which I and every other responsible gun owner I know of was taught, which is do not point a weapon at anything you don't want to shoot. Loaded, unloaded, doesn't matter. Do not point a gun at anything you don't want to shoot. Don't point it at the cat. Don't point it at your TV. Don't point it at a picture on the wall unless you're okay with shooting it. Like that is rule number one, loaded or unloaded. And that's ignoring that they're pointing them at peaceful protesters. I'm sure they were hoping someone would come at them so that they could have a story about them. They ended up getting a story about them, but I don't think it's the one they wanted. Yeah, you can't really tell it in this picture, but if it weren't for the fact the gun was so small, I'd be worried the way she held it in one of the pictures I saw. If she fired it, she was going to get a black eye.
Is covering this. So here's the screenshot from the Washington Post. St. Louis couple point guns at peaceful crowd of protesters calling for mayor to resign. And of course, this was tweeted out by Logan Hill, who said how the Washington Post describes what happened versus what actually happened, which seems to happen all the time, right? We seem to always see the mainstream media try to present things in a
Yes, KJ, I've heard about Dr. Disrespect. Given that there is no official reason for why he was banned or what happened to him, I'm just choosing not to talk or speculate about it. Until we find out what exactly happened. I know the last few minutes of his stream were weird as fuck, but yeah, we have no idea what happened.
In a fashion that withholds a lot of context, that doesn't tell the full story, trying to push a worldview, trying to push an ideology and shove that ideology down the throat of the normies who potentially read their newspaper as if it's truth, right? If you're a normie, if you're, one of these older citizens of the United States of America and you're reading the newspaper, right, on the airplane to your next business trip and you see this headline, St. Louis couple point guns at peaceful crowd of protesters calling for the mayor to resign, just redressing their grievances. You might think, well, wow, why would they do that? That is evil. This is evil white supremacy. I can't believe they did that. Why are they not in prison? No justice, no peace, right? You might think something along...
Again, no one is calling for this couple to go to jail. We're just kind of shaming them for being this dumb.
the lines of that. But of course, this is not the whole story. Of course, this is not what happened. We're going to go through all of the facts of the story today with you. I also want to talk about a couple of other things that the media is not covering that I think is important to cover, that you might only hear on this channel and a few other channels, maybe on some Telegram channels, maybe some Twitter pages, if they haven't been banned yet, of course. Now, before we get started, before we talk about the cul-de-sac commandos, I'd like to thank this video sponsor. This video has been kindly sponsored by Health with Vincent. Improve ageless your body and its odor, and a report link in the description below. It helps this channel out tremendously. So let's start off with the multiple legal opinions on this case, which
it was like 40 minutes or 40 seconds of ads there, 40 or 50 seconds. Nice.
Are unanimous. I don't know if you know this.
Potentially. I can see where you're coming from there, Magmill. Yeah. It really depends on the local laws. And again, I mean, if they did break a law here, then sure, prosecute them that way. But I think just shaming them and plastering their names and faces all over social media is going to be punishment enough.
Or not, but both of these people are lawyers. They work for their own law firm called the McCloskey Law Firm, which is their last name, the McCloskeys. So you would think that they would probably, even if they are just personal injury lawyers, you would think that they probably know the law of the land in which they reside. Starting out with the Castle Doctrine, I think that they're probably familiar with the Castle Doctrine, if they are lawyers themselves. So we're going to start out with this story. This story is from the St. Louis Dispatch, and it says, protesters chanted to a drumbeat of "Let's Go." Hundreds of them filed by. The couple, Mark T. and Patricia N. McCloskey, stood outside with weapons. They are personal injury lawyers who work together in the McCloskey Law Center and own a $1 million home. Private property, Mark McCloskey shouted repeatedly at the crowd as he held a rifle. "Get out! Private property, get out!" Patricia McCloskey pointed a small handgun. By the way, I just have to say this. I'm just noticing this now as I'm reading through this. They say that this is a $1 million home. This is like a castle. Okay, we're going to talk about the Castle Doctrine here in a little bit. This is the castle. Okay, so just look at what you can get for $1 million.
I call bullshit. It's illegal in most cities to let your grass get more than 5 inches tall. It's definitely illegal to have a loaded firearm with a finger on the trigger. This is one of those things where the letter of the law and the spirit are kind of maybe that's not the right phraseology, but basically standing there with a gun may or may not be interpreted as threatening depending on how it gets argued. So I'm assuming he's going to go over this here.
In St. Louis, and then look at what you can get for $1 million in California. It's just so ridiculous. I was just thinking about that as we're reading through this. But anyway, it goes on. And
yeah, cost of living is very different depending on where you live. News at 11.
Says the couple's renovation of their storied Renaissance Palazzo mansion on Portland Place, was featured in St. Louis Magazine. City records show the property is appraised at $1.15 million. The couple could not be reached Monday morning to talk about the incident. To access Portland Place, the crowd entered through the iron pedestrian gate. But not just entered through. We're going to get to that here in a minute. The McCloskeys told police the protesters broke the gate to get in. St. Louis police said the couple had called police for help once they saw the large crowd enter Portland Place. The McCloskeys had been at the home and heard a loud commotion coming from the street. They went to investigate and saw a large group of subjects forcefully break in an iron gate marked with "No trespassing" and private street signs, police said. The group began yelling obscenities and threats of harm to both the victims, police said. When the victims observed multiple subjects who were armed, they then armed themselves and contacted the police. The group of protesters eventually moved on and arrived at Cruston's home on Lake Avenue a block away. Police are continuing to investigate the incident on Portland Place, but are labeling it as a case of trespassing and fourth-degree assault by intimidation. So apparently, not the people who were arming themselves against the threatening protesters or rioters actually who broke through.
So aside from potentially smashing a gate, They weren't rioting. They were peacefully protesting. I'm sure some people yelled shit at them, especially when they started pointing guns at them. But again, from my understanding of the hold your ground laws, that means that you are not obligated uh, to escape if given the opportunity. Like I remember this was a big thing with the Trayvon Martin incident several years ago. That Florida is a stand your ground law, whereas other places have a I forget what the non stand your ground, but basically, if you have an opportunity to escape, you are obligated legally to take it instead of confronting your burglar or what have you. Because if you confront them and harm them, then you are at fault or whatever. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not entirely sure how this is, but again, this is why I say what they did probably isn't illegal, especially if it is a private drive. But I still think they look stupid and should be shamed for it. Yeah, yeah, I agree, Dodge. I'm not saying no one will argue that there is a context issue here, but surely we as reasonable people can agree that this is obviously threatening behavior. Right. Yeah. No, I agree, Magmil. 100%. Yeah. I agree with you there. Um, and I agree that it is stupid and possibly illegal, except that this is apparently a private drive. So that changes things tremendously. But I agree that they were dumb and should be shamed for doing this.
Through an iron gate, not just enter the iron gate, but broke through the iron gate, clearly marked as private property in a private gated community, a private sidewalk. They're not going to charge them, it seems, according to this article here. They're looking at potential charges of fourth-degree assault by intimidation on the protesters. Meanwhile, were the couple, as they stood on their own private property within their rights to point weapons at protesters? Gun rights advocates say yes, a police spokesperson said to the courts. Anders Walker, a constitutional...
Of course, gun rights advocates are going to say yes. They're never going to say differently in this situation. But the fact that a police spokesperson said to ask the courts, yeah, that's a matter for the courts to decide. The homeowners broke no laws by brandishing or pointing weapons at them because Portland Place is a private street. Yeah.
Constitutional law professor at St. Louis University said that although it is
I'm going to speed him up too because he's just reading the article.
Dangerous to engage with protesters with guns, the homeowners broke no laws by brandishing or pointing weapons at them because Portland Place is a private street. He said the McCloskeys are protected by Missouri's Castle Doctrine, which allows people to use deadly force to defend private property. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Castle Doctrine here. Castle Doctrine. A Castle Doctrine is also known as Castle Law or Defensive Habitation Law. It is a legal doctrine that designates...
You're way behind, KJ. We've already established that it was a private property. That's why I say, okay, they definitely didn't break any laws by brandishing the weapons. It was just stupid.
A person's abode or any legally occupied place, for example, a vehicle or a home, as a place in which the person has protections and immunities permitting one, in such circumstances, to use force up to and including deadly force to defend oneself against an intruder, free from legal prosecution for the consequences of the force used. And by the way, these people being lawyers, you would probably believe that they probably already understand the law in the land in which they reside, and especially the castle.
Not necessarily. I mean, they're personal injury lawyers, so they may be more familiar with the Castle Doctrine, but there's a reason why lawyers specialize, and it's because the law is very complex. So while, again, a personal injury lawyer might be more likely to be familiar with the Castle Doctrine, just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean you're familiar with all the laws in your area. Now, you may have the knowledge and training to find and interpret those laws, but you wouldn't necessarily know them off the top of your head. This is the same thing like people expect a doctor, any random doctor, to be able to diagnose any random disorder. You wouldn't go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor for an issue with your gut. You know, you wouldn't go to an accounting lawyer for issues with your personal injury or home defense. Like, there's different specializations, and especially if they've been practicing for a while, their general law knowledge is probably going to be less than their knowledge about their specific specialization. So this assumption that because they're lawyers they would know the law is not correct. You're wrong. I have a master's in English, so I literally know all books. Prove me wrong. Okay, I'll defer to your expert opinion there, Magno. I'm sure you know all the books.
Castle Doctrine, Missouri's Castle Doctrine. But I want to show you the fence. Because was the fence just merely entered through by these peaceful protesters, as the Washington Post would have you believe? No, not exactly. This iron fence, which I'm sure is probably very expensive iron, was broken through by rioters. By rioters, because I don't think that we can actually correctly or accurately describe them as just peaceful protesters or protesters in general. Honestly, when you
Of course, you don't want to do that. They smashed a fence. Maybe this is the only way or the quickest way to get to where they were going. I don't know why they chose to go through there, but if that's the only damage they did, you can't really call them rioters.
look at it, I mean, this meme really sums up the media's coverage of this versus what has been going on over the past couple of weeks, and not just a couple of weeks since George Floyd, and actually even longer than that. You have multiple incidents, probably thousands of incidents, of interracial attacks that have occurred. Lots of homicides that have occurred, many shootings in Seattle's autonomous zone that have occurred that have resulted in deaths, many rapes, many robberies, many aggravated assaults, and it's all just one big block party, according to the media, right? That's what they say, that's how they describe it. It's just a block party. It's just a peaceful party that they're having.
So while his trigger discipline is good here, he's not going to be able to hit jack shit with the way he's holding that. He's holding that to look cool, not to, as Magma already pointed out, tactical. Yeah, this is. I mean, whether he actually intended to shoot anyone or not, which, as a self-admitted gun person, if I pull a gun out and load it and take it somewhere, I'm intending to shoot someone or shoot something. I've never been in a position where I was going to shoot someone, but I'm definitely wanting to shoot something if I do this to a gun. So I think he was hoping. He was hoping.
As thousands more interracial attacks, black and white attacks, are added to the tally, which is normally already 500,000 incidents every single year, 90+%, almost 100% of all the interracial attacks that occur every single year. And then,
yeah, if they were able to break that wrought iron gate in half, it was almost certainly just for show and not that strong.
BLM protesters are beating up Catholics who are just trying to pray in St. Louis. So this is going on in St. Louis, but of course, this is what the media decides to cover. It's like what
source on them beating up Catholics who are trying to pray? Okay. Okay, a Catholic prayer event in the St. Louis state in Missouri was interrupted by Black Lives Matter protesters. Violence broke out at the event. Fuck off. Black Lives Matter members attacked participants at the prayer event. Okay. The Libertarian Republic.com. Okay. Any more reputable story? CBN. Is my stream lagging that much for KJ? I appreciate it, bro, but this is all stuff that's already been in the video. Punch elderly man, attack praying Catholics. Okay. The statue of King Louis IX of France, a monument sold for more than 100 years, and over the weekend things turned violent. At the base of the years-old statue on Saturday, Okay. Organizer of Black Lives Matter rally told the local news outlet. And yeah, he was a French king. Um, described this happening as more than a flash in the pan. Yep, yep. Okay. Gathered around the monument, pray for peace, to protect the statue, and to clean up any damage done to the memorial. Religious symbol of everything all I hold dear. Honey, if you consider a statue of King Louis the Ninth to be a holy, a religious symbol of everything you hold dear, you boy. Black Lives Matter protesters not to write at the base of the statue, and they did it anyway. Um, Videos posted Martin toward the end of the rally. Some protesters began attacking. Peacefully praying and did nothing in retaliation. Okay, so what we have here is okay. Now, while I'm willing to bite the bullet and say that this was potentially unprovoked, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened. It's possible that this guy said something to this guy to provoke him, and he was like, "Hey, get out of here!" and kicked at him. Possible escalation. Someone else grabbed him, presumably someone else with this person. And then when he was grabbed, the other people there were like, "Oh no, you're not grabbing our boy," and went to defend the person who was grabbed. And then he gets away. I mean, yeah, this ain't great optics. I'm not gonna defend this. But again, we don't know what was said there. There's all sorts of things. We're praying for peace and unity. We allowed them to harass, berate, spit on us, stick fingers in our face, blah blah blah. Spit on us, call us names, put their fingers in our face, push us in antagonism. But again, we don't know what actually sparked this here, other than, I mean, this does seem a little excessive for just people who are, just peacefully praying and whatnot around the area. These are allegedly videos from the protests he's referring to of Black Lives Matter beating up Catholics. I do think it's a little telling that the only instances um, are from groups like CBN and the Libertarian Republic. So right there, you're saying you a skinhead, you look like a skinhead. Yeah. That looks like this dude said something in reply to the other dude that didn't get picked up by the microphone. And they decided, all right, that's it. We're throwing hands. So, yeah, I'm willing to call this provoked bad optics, basically. Again, especially since the only places that are covering it, Church Pop, Newsbreak, which seemed relevant, but then it just linked to Libertarian Review, uh, Josh Who, WHO Megalol. Okay. The unruly leftist mob screamed at us, flipped us off, threatened several people and blew horns as we recited a rosary. Following the rally, at least 3 Christian. Okay, yeah, this is. So, yeah. Joe Jorgens, I think you're starting to pick up steam, and I'd love to see your take on all of it. Yeah, I think I will do something like that. I also have seen her picking up steam. So, yeah, I think she will be the subject of the next Who the F Is. All right, so basically looks like there was some people who stayed after the event and provoked some reactions from the crowd, and well, got beat a little bit. Again, I don't think it was great optics, but it definitely looked like there was some part of the tale we're not getting. So continue, James.
But I pointed out earlier, yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before that, when you look at how the media chooses to cover things like this, or how the media chooses to cover things like that woman who was calling the police, and I believe it was Central Park in New York City, on a man who said that you're not going to like what happens next, and they were alone. She got fired from her job. She had her dog taken away. And then meanwhile,
boy! Standing Central Park Karen. The woman who was choking her dog and sobbing into the phone that there was a black man and he's threatening me. And I'm so scared. Please send the police. Send the police. A week or two after George Floyd. Like, this bitch was unhinged. And here's Vincent James defending him.
We have, like, people getting beaten up because they're white, while
defending her, excuse me.
Rioters, while teens shout Black Lives Matter as they kick them in the face, like the case in Spring, Texas, which is just one of thousands of cases that have occurred since George Floyd as far as, like, racist attacks are concerned. And if we just want to talk about, like, racial motivation behind attacks, right? If we just want to talk about interracial attacks, which media loves to jump on when it's in the reverse, which almost never happens, they're so desperate to jump on these stories that they cover fake hate hoax crimes all the time, right? Bubba Wallace with his noose, which is actually a garage pole. Jussie Smollett, who got beat up by them white guys in Chicago, who turned out to be Nigerian actors who he hired, right? just take a trip over to, what is it?
Holy shit. He's citing a handful of debunked hate crimes and ignoring all of the other crimes. Like, notice he didn't mention Ahmaud Arbery or Trayvon Martin. Oh god, there's been a couple other big high-profile ones recently that were legitimate hate crimes, and then ignoring just the real issue that George Floyd is fighting for, which is police reform, because we need to change the way police interact with people in our society and how much they interact with people in our society, or again, at least the mode of interaction. Wasn't this supposed to be about Ken and Karen? Come on. If Karen's getting arrested in suburbia where the cops are extremely polite and gentle with them, and they start screaming, "I can't breathe." No, I haven't seen that video.
Fake hate crimes, fakehatecrimes.org, and you'll find out that all of these different stories that the media is so desperate to jump on, because they're so desperate for that story that almost never happens, that they jump on hoaxes almost every single time. And there was another story of these news.
So, this NASCAR noose, I get the feeling what it was someone deliberately turned a garage door pole into a noose. Because this is it was just a garage door pole. Do you really think it's always been shaped like a noose? But yeah,
nooses hung in a tree. I can't remember where it was, but it turned out that they were hung by a black guy who wanted to exercise in a tree or something like that, like hanging from the tree, doing pull-ups from a tree. Not exactly sure, but honestly, it's understandable considering a lot of the gyms are still closed and many gyms.
Why would you hang nooses to work out? That seems sketchy as fuck.
chains are actually going bankrupt because of the shutdown that has occurred, which, by the way, has probably already resulted in more deaths of despair and suicides and drug overdoses and things of that nature than people dying from the actual COVID-19 itself. I mean, if anyone's interested
Oh yeah, 130,000 deaths, but definitely more than that have committed suicide because their business went belly up, I'm sure.
in science, there are multiple studies out there, several meta-analyses that have already determined that for every 1% of unemployment the country experiences, 5,300 to 10,000 people die. We're 20% unemployment. Do the math for yourself. Anyway, a couple of other stories that the media is not covering. There was a man analyses that have already determined that for every 1% of unemployment the country experiences, 5,300 to 10,000 people die. We're 20% unemployment.
So taking the mean there, about 7,500. If we're at 20%, that's okay. So yeah, we have just exceeded the number of deaths from COVID-19, if that is correct. But we're not actually going from 1 to 20%. We're actually looking at, say, what were we at, 3.5%, 4% before COVID? So 16 times 7,500, that's what, 112,000? So we still have more deaths from COVID. You're wrong.
Do the math for yourself. Anyway, a couple of other stories that the media is not covering. There was a man who was 19, another teen, who shot two other teens, dead after they asked how tall he was while buying candy at a store in Chicago. That's something that occurred recently. A 1-year-old is among 18 dead and 47 wounded during one weekend of Chicago shootings. Where's Black Lives Matter? Nowhere to be found. They're pretending.
Wow. It's almost like gangs still exist? God, I hate when they turn this shit around like this. It's so disingenuous. Gang activity is the result of socioeconomic conditions. Irish and Italian people were the gangs 100 years ago, but then they figured out how to claim to be white and got out of the ghetto. Black people are still there due to, again, socioeconomic conditions, history of disenfranchisement, yada, yada, yada. So we all mourn for those lost to gang activity, but if you're trying to claim that they are somehow that they somehow discredit Black Lives Matter, then you're just wrong. Black Lives Matter whole point is that their lives disproportionately don't matter, both in the way police treat them and in the way society basically perpetuates the area where they have these high crime, high gang activity areas. If we rebuilt society so that they didn't have those issues, then they wouldn't have the crime. But nobody. Hey, thanks for the follow, Marcus Lamar62. Yeah, this isn't a dog whistle, this is an air raid siren. No shit. So yeah, this isn't that black people are more violent or more prone to criminality by some inherent unchangeable nature of them. It's that they're overwhelmingly put in situations where the best option is crime, or the only option is crime. And then that creates a cycle. We need to break that cycle. That's part of what BLM is arguing about. That man is being stupid and intimidating with the rifle, Marcus Lamar.
This didn't happen because it's not about black lives for them, and it's not about police brutality for them. It's about when white people attack black people or say anything offensive to them. That's really what this is about in its entirety. As they rampage through the streets and riots and burn down businesses and shoot people and kill people and rape people and burglarize places and commit thousands more interracial attacks.
Again, he's conflating Black Lives Matter with general gang activity and general crime activity. We actually had that issue here in my town. Right after the Minneapolis protests broke out and got violent, we had a bunch of people going around breaking windows and breaking into places here, not as part of any kind of protest that got violent, just as shitheads being criminals. And that is an issue that we need to worry about. And it's something that I think Black Lives Matter has done well to distance themselves by making sure that that when they get violent, they come back and help clean it up the next day. That's something that doesn't get shown on the mainstream news that often. But also trying to do their best to make sure that things don't get violent. And you notice that as they've been less violent, even though the protests are continuing with unabated fervor, they're not on the news anymore. Because uh, there's no good solid story there of black and brown people being violent. It's just them peacefully protesting to get what they want. Unless it's something like this where Ken and Karen each grabbed a gat.
This year than probably is ever going to occur in any year going back throughout history. I mean, we have the data on all of this, right? We have, 3.4 million police interactions every single year that results in 50 unarmed people being shot and killed, most of whom are attacking someone at the time of them being shot by the police, by the way, even though they're unarmed, most of which are white as well, versus the 8,000 black victims mostly who are killed by other blacks on a yearly basis, including a lot of these instances, like in
Holy, yeah, he's not even really dog whistling. He's just mask off. Fuck it, mask off. Like, yeah, a lot of those interactions, and actually that number seems. Oh shit! I didn't even notice he's got the bell curve prominently displayed right here, right next to his fucking Bible. Um. Okay, so data visualizations. I don't know anything about this fatal encounters, but yeah. Let's see. So rate a race of decedent. So yeah, 13,000. This is so in 2020 alone we've had 800, 1800, 1700. Yeah. I mean that blows his numbers right out of the water. He was saying 50. No, it's more like 2,000, my dude. I mean, I will admit that generally speaking, fatal encounters with police are a minority of encounters, but there's still too much. So as a minute I think of home defense, I'm later thinking about protecting myself and my family. Conservatives mean the term literally. While the memes are funny, the Ken and Karen thing highlights the reality that private property being worth more than human lives is not an ideological position held by a small number of wealthy mega elite, but by swaths of the middle class. Yeah, true, Magmill. And the fact that the gatekeeping of private property to only those who can afford it means that only those who can afford to own their property have the right to defend it.
Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, Jackson, Mississippi. We can go through the different cities that are majority all across America. They don't really tend to really focus in on those events or hone in on those events because the perpetrator is not the right type of perpetrator to be able for them to be able to claim and continue on with this victim narrative and these electoral wins that they get.
Boy, it's really funny when a conservative complains about a victim narrative, given how often they claim victimhood, either of censorship or what have you. When the victims in question here are people who are being shot and killed.
From this and the money and all sorts of things. I mean, really, when you look at it, it's almost like you're mad, right? But you look at some of the things that are happening, like some of the money grabs that are going on right now, where they have really convinced a lot of the population to give them their money over for something that's not backed in any science or analytical reality whatsoever. And
wrong. Oh boy, let me bust it out. So it's a matter of statistical record and truth that blacks are overrepresented in prisons. They are more likely to be shot. Now, yes, in raw numbers and percentage, there are more white people shot than black people, but black people are still disproportionately represented in fatal police involved shootings, to use the most uh, sanitized language about it. And these are all uh, peer reviewed studies. These are not blog posts, these are not articles. I can pull it up, justicepolicy.org. This one is, let's see which. Yeah. Well, white and black Americans admit to using and selling illicit drugs at similar rates. Black Americans are vastly more likely to go to prison, incarcerated for drug offense at 10 times the rate of white Americans, 3.7 times as likely to be arrested for a marijuana offense as whites, despite similar usage. Large population counties have racial biases in their drug. Yeah. So you're just wrong there, my dude. Completely wrong.
And you just look at what they're using this money for. I mean, you look at some of the reportifications, you look at the private security being paid for, you look at, all these different things going on, and it's just like,
yeah, exactly, Dodge. Ken and Karen are willing to kill to save their bodies. They're willing to kill to save their chandeliers. That should make you afraid. Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly. If they were afraid for their lives, they wouldn't go out onto the front yard and limply point a pistol at them. They would have been holed up in their room, maybe clutching their gun. And be like, I hope nobody comes in. I hope nobody comes in. Please, somebody come in. Please, please, somebody come in. I really want to shoot a blackie. I really want to do it.
They convinced the millions of people and corporations to give them millions and billions of dollars, and they're using it for vacations. And now, and their About Us website, they're talking about deconstructing the traditional family structure, excluding fathers. They're talking about abolishing cisgender. They're talking about all.
Holy shit. Like, the idea that the Black Lives Matter movement is taking in these donations and using them for vacations is laughable as it is. But he's using the fact that they're talking about how the current makeup of family structures in society and the like are kind of the problem, is an issue that needs to be addressed. Yeah, ideally we'd like to tear down the family structure so it wasn't so reliant on a nuclear mother and father, or dual parenting, in order to give the kid a chance to succeed. We'd like to create a society where it didn't matter whether you had one parent or seven, you had an equal shot at succeeding. The problem is, right now, there are so many kids that are born into single parent homes through some mistakes made on the parents' behalf. I'm not going to completely absolve them of responsibility for their actions, but their actions taken in the context of they didn't really have any good choices to make. So these children are raised in these poor homes and come up and, again, don't have very good choices to make. So they make poor choices and the cycle continues. What if we restructured society just a little bit, so that there were more social programs to help people who fell into these situations, so that they didn't have to resort to crime or selling their bodies or whatever in order to make ends meet? I mean, I hate to keep going back to this example, but there are people who have a legitimate job, don't make enough at that job, so they sell drugs to make ends meet. I mean, you gotta get on that hustle. Gotta be hustling. Always be hustling, right? If you're not on the hustle, you're wasting time.
All these, a revolution, a Marxist revolution, they're admitting that they're
That's the crux of it. White conservative middle class Americans are so indoctrinated in American exceptionalism and capitalistic conceptions of reality that they literally can't distinguish between I as my body and I as me and my possessions. True. When they think they might lose some of their physical possessions or wealth, they literally trigger the same fight or flight response a normal creature gets when a predator is about to eat their body. This is a complete breakdown. Yeah? When the only means of identification you have is your stuff, then a threat to that stuff feels like a threat to your person. Shut up, Dodge. Jeez. Put all my business out there.
Marxist revolutionaries at the top, and you just look at this and you're just like, can you, I mean, yeah, you're mad, but can you, I mean, look at all this money they just got by convincing really stupid individuals to go along with their plan. I mean, we also have a couple of other stories here. There were some violent protesters who attacked an elderly man and a bunch of other praying Catholics who were protecting the King Louis IX statue. And if you watch some of these videos, I mean, it's clear.
Okay, yeah, we already went over this. I don't really want to listen to him talk about how they provoked the poor, innocent Catholics. When again, I maintain that there was some sort of provocation there. I mean, the protester was maybe being a little aggressive, getting in the dude's space. You know, you a skinhead, you a skinhead. But I really don't feel like listening to him rehash that, so let's see where we go from here.
Some people's praise you. May Jesus, who is called faithful and true and who lives with you eternally, possess our hearts forever. This is a psalm prayer. Here is Dave Porter.
Thank you for the bits. Thank you for the bits, Dodge. Appreciate it.
Okay, emergency press conference time. Well, it took them long enough. Cancel culture finally coming after Barstool. I mean, they've come after what? Jimmy Kimmel, Joe Rogan, Bill Simmons. Now it's our turn. You knew it was going to happen. To be honest, they've been coming after me for 17 fucking years. People want to get rid of us. It's like going into a comedy club for a comedian that you hate, that you didn't buy a ticket for, hearing a joke, running out to the street and be like, hey, you'll never believe what this guy said, without giving any context or even saying it was a comedy fucking show. That's what these people do. And I'm not...
Comedy does not excuse bad messaging. An edgy joke is only an edgy joke if it doesn't make an argument. This is rule number 2 of edgy jokes. Rule number 1 is it's still got to be funny. I mean, but you can't make an argument with your edgy joke, which is how people like Chris Rock and even Chris Rock, some of his earlier edgy jokes kind of made an argument, especially his infamous Black people versus N-words video. You know, kind of making that idea that that N-words were somehow inherently this way. But you know, just because it's a joke doesn't mean it's not also a bad thing to say. Everyone can watch ads and contribute bits to their favorite streamers. Just saying. Comedy is not inert. It has and has always had political function. The idea that a bad joke isn't bad because it is a joke is a smooth brain dribble. Yeah. And not a good king. He was a bad king. The kind that oppressed people and did nothing to contribute to society.
I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to bend the knee.
Posted the following on your site. I never condone rape, but if you're a size 6 and you're wearing skinny jeans, you kind of deserve to be raped.
Correct. I stand by that. I think it's a funny joke.
You think rape is funny?
No, I didn't say that. I think it's a funny joke.
Do you understand how offensive that is?
No, I obviously don't.
My goal is to eventually become a powerhouse of truth. That is why.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a funny joke. I mean, Vincent James is kind of a joke, but he's not funny. And yeah, as I started out saying, they should be shamed for legally defending their home because they did it in literally the dumbest, worst possible way. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment because it helps me. Subscribe and ring that bell to help you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.